Why is unamplified music the gold standard for audio reviewers? This question comes from Mike in Moscow, Idaho, which must have been colonized by Russians, I'm guessing. Hi, Paul. Why is it that in nearly every review of hi-fi gear I read, the gold standard for music is unamplified live acoustic music, specifically live classical music? If the experience of the grand concert house is what the hi-fi world seeks to replicate, why don't we see more engineers making airy speakers like magnaplaners, open baffles, or other dipole-based designs? And why don't we see more speakers that use room reflection as a design element? Wouldn't a more omnidirectional speaker best replicate the experience of being in a concert hall? Thanks, Paul. I really appreciate the mix of your candor, accessibility, and engineering that you bring to Ask Paul. Mike. Well, thank you, Mike. That's very kind. And I appreciate good questions. Does this seat go up a little? Whoop! Now I feel important. So, tall people are always important. First off, the sound of unamplified music, whether it be acoustic instruments or even human voice, is probably used, well, certainly in my case, and every person that I know that's involved in this, is used pretty much as a reference because it's the easiest to say that is right. I mean, what's the right sound of a Fender guitar? What's the right sound of a synthesizer? I mean, there is no right sound, but a tuba, a clarinet, a violin, there's a right sound. Now, it may not have the right ambience, there might room cues, those might be wrong because we don't know how they were recorded. And we don't know what kind of microphones were used to record them, but you can easily identify a human voice. Yep, that sounds like a human. Nope, that doesn't sound like a violin. That sounds like an electronic version of a violin. So that's the simple answer of why we listen to that as a reference, because there has to be some basis of reality to pin our hats on in order to say this is accurate and that isn't. I have seen far too many people setting up their systems with their favorite pop music. And it makes it sound great for a lot of their pop songs, but those pop songs don't represent reality. So that when you do put something that's realistic on, it doesn't sound right. The double-edged sword there is if you don't listen to much acoustic music, maybe it's at the expense of all your pop music. So, I mean, I guess you could make an argument there. But at the end of the day, what reviewers and manufacturers can only really do is provide something that sounds musical and natural without adding artifacts and added syrup or whatever terms you want to use to describe how we might manipulate sound. And it certainly can be done. But over time, it's kind of like, well, maybe that's a good analogy. I mean, you don't want to pour honey on every single thing that you eat because after a while it tastes kind of bland. I mean, you see where I'm getting at? You want a bowl of strawberries. I mean, the first time you pour honey on strawberries, like, whew, that's good. Second time, because each strawberry, every time you buy strawberries, they taste a little different. Every time I buy cherries or fruit of any kind, each one's subtly different. The last thing I want to do is cover it up with something so it always tastes the same. If you want that, go to McDonald's. Don't go to McDonald's. Bad stuff. Don't do it. It's killing you. Seriously, stay away from them fast food places. I know. We love our fat and our salt and our meat and all that. Be kind to yourself and you will live longer. Okay, enough of that crap. All right, what was the other question? Why don't we see more, airy speakers, yeah. Well, that's a real tough one. Speakers are hard because we never know what kind of room they're going to be played in. Imagine if I made a speaker that used the walls and depended on the walls to bounce off of. You'd have a difficult time placing it in rooms and getting any kind of consistent results. Obviously, Bose tried that years ago with their famous 901, their direct reflecting loudspeakers. What did that mean? Well, that meant that there was a loudspeaker box with a whole group of little 5-inch drivers on one side, and one, I think it had one, two maybe, anyway, only a few on the front. So that was the direct, the front came at you directly, but then the rest, the array of speakers, bounced off the wall and back, and that gave a kind of a cool effect, but it was an effect. It wasn't really doing a good job of reproducing live sound. So I suppose the answer is it all depends on what you want. When we design speakers, we want those speakers themselves to disappear. I want to be able to build speakers, and we will build speakers, and we are building speakers that in 2019 will be released at some point, God willing, that are going to literally disappear. So when you place them in a room, if you were to turn the lights off, you're not going to be able to point to where the speakers are. All you're going to hear is this gorgeous sound stage that is enveloping you in the music. And that's the disappearing speaker trick that we've worked so hard over the years to develop. So that's the goal. We'll do it not by these airy speakers, but there's probably 15 ways to get to church on Sunday. And this is the one that we've chosen. All right. Thanks. Great question. And I'll talk to you tomorrow.